Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is iATROGENIC. So as you can see for this live today, I'm going to be talking about a very sensitive topic in regards to Black maternal health, the disparities that we have in the healthcare systems for African American women within the diaspora. I will be sharing some information and some online platforms that are really important for African American women to get involved with, to be supporting anyone who is said to be an ally within our communities. I feel that it is very important to understand a lot of this information and how you can be a better person in our society to help our communities to not be targeted in the way that they are at this rate right now. So I have a couple of different web forums that I'm going to be discussing and going over and kind of giving my opinion about and my personal experiences being an African American woman within the diaspora. I am a single mom. I have dealt with my own personal struggles when it comes to the medical setting, the medical field, and I'm definitely someone who is in support of figuring out how we can keep our daughters safe, how we can keep ourselves safe, and also keep ourselves healthy. So the first platform that I'm looking at here, and I just want to share, some information in regards to my locality where I live. I do not live in a state where there are a lot of programs and enactments where these, issues are a priority within my locality. So a lot of the web forums that I will be sharing here are abroad and they are within different states of here. However, I definitely don't feel like you have to be in the same area to support a cause in order for it to be brought to attention. So the first one here I have is the BMMA, which is the Black Mamas Matter Alliance website, as you can see here. And they are based out of Atlanta, Georgia, but I do love how they share a lot of really good information in regards to maternal mental health, how Black women are really going unseen in the therapeutics space, mental health, how a lot of us are being mislabeled, being mistreated, being medically gaslit, abused, and neglected. And I feel like it's very important to make this a priority if you are someone who is said to be an ally and to stand with what is right and human rights. I feel like there's no reason to second guess voicing your solidarity when it comes to Black women and the disparities that we have to deal with our families. So I'm just going to read one of these advertisements here because I feel like there's a lot of really good information on this website, a lot of really deep inserts. So this one states here specifically, Black mothers and birthing people have the highest rates of depressive symptoms of any group, yet are the least likely to receive treatment. And I feel like that is something that is really disheartening to know that we have the highest rate of, the mortality rate and our children not being birthed to term, or, we are losing our lives during the birthing experience, or we are being neglected in labor. I feel like it is very frustrating to see so many of our sisters dealing with medical neglect on such a, global standpoint where, people are recording it, they're posting it online, and they're letting everyone know, look what's happening here. Are you going to tell us that what we're dealing with, we have caused it? There's something that we have done to cause this medical neglect in the medical space, seeing our sisters, being, in labor and active labor, ready to give birth to our children, and to be held in a, medical office waiting for paperwork to be processed, and you are basically holding in your child and not able to give birth to them the way that you're supposed to. I feel like it is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen, and it is definitely something that needs to change, and it needs to change now. It's not fair that there are so many Black moms who are dealing with this, and there are so many people who have claimed to be our allies and claimed allyship who are not speaking about these issues and not doing anything about it to make it better for us and our families. So I feel like it's definitely something that has, it has progressively gotten worse. I also have some statistics here from the worldmetrics.org website. So I'm just going to read through some of the percentages and the numbers, because numbers speak louder than just words. So in the key findings section, it states here, Black maternal mortality rate is 23.8% per 100,000 live births, compared to their 9.3 per 100,000 for other women. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than non-Hispanic white women. The maternal mortality rate for Black women in the U.S. has increased by 36% since the year 2000, even as it has decreased for other groups. Black infants are 2 times more likely to be born preterm before 37 weeks than white infants, 14.1% versus 9.2%. And this comes from the March of Dimes. So I feel like, a lot of this information is not just made up. This comes from reputable sources that are reporting, these disparities. And I feel like for them to be reporting these disparities, why aren't they doing more of an outreach to figure out how to fix these problems? Because it has continued to increase and it has continued to get worse, and it's not getting any better. It also states here, Black women are 2 times more likely to have a low birth weight baby. And it's just really hard to, to look through these statistics and see that progressively over the years, these numbers have skyrocketed in the United States. And I feel like there's more that needs to be done in order to make visible Black moms that are unseen. So I also have here the Congress.gov Black Maternal Health Momnibus Act pulled up here, and I just want to kind of go through it and share some information and trying to really, gauge an understanding into why this act has not been passed. It was currently updated as of today, April 15th. This act still has not been enacted, and it doesn't make any sense for it to have been delayed and overlooked. So this act is S1606. And it's to end preventable maternal mortality, severe maternal morbidity, and maternal health disparities in the United States, and for other purposes. So that's what the bill is initially supposed to help. And as of, today's date, this bill still has not been passed. And it doesn't make any sense that we still in 2026 are fighting for our right to birth in a safe space and have people in our surroundings that care for us just as much as they care for their other counterparts. So I feel like it is definitely really detrimental to the mental health of, the Black woman, the Black family, the Black children, because that also, makes it hard for you to raise your children in a way that they can be, healthy and be able to be treated as humans, even when they're in the prenatal, stages, or when they're, you're looking for healthcare, providers who are going to be upstanding and treat you with respect. Pediatricians, making sure that, whoever your pediatricians are, they are being respectful to your children and not, using that space to also abuse them. So I feel like it is definitely a topic that more people should be talking about and figuring out how they can help others. If you otherwise do not care, then, that is for your own, for your own keep. If you do not care, then you do not care. But for those who do care, I do share a lot of information here that is going to be helpful for my sisters. I personally have begun my own kind of WhatsApp groups and trying to really bridge the gap between sistership, because even when it comes to being in faith spaces and reaching out to, different communities and trying to be seen by people who otherwise do not care for you, is definitely something that is very hard. Even, being a Black Muslim, being a single mom, and, being new to a faith community, it is definitely hard in my locality to find women who look like me, who have experiences where, they are not being treated well, and being able to congregate within the diaspora and figure out how we can be of assistance to one another. How can we help protect each other's children when we are in medical spaces? How can we help alleviate the isolation that our children are going to be ultimately subjected to when they are of age to have their own health checkups? It's definitely something I think about, being a single mom and having a daughter, a Black child, who eventually is going to have to navigate this system alone. And me as a mom, I do not want to, live with that reality that there could, potentially be a run-in with a pediatrician, or with, anyone in the mental health space, or, overall health community that is going to victimize, a young child. I personally have, dealt with being in medical spaces, even as a child, in early stages, and dealing with, medical abuse and dealing with medical neglect as a Black child and as a Black woman. And I feel like it's definitely something that needs to be eradicated within our society. The people who are committing these crimes need to be brought to justice. It is not fair that it will continue, and we will sit and we will wait for this bill to be passed, and it, will continue to be overlooked until all of the Black women within, our society are going to be exterminated. So it definitely seems like an extermination tool, and I feel like it is not fair for our families to have to be subjected to these ills within our society. So it's definitely hard to, understand, here's this bill, to help with social detriments for, Black moms, how we can help with those disparities, but no one is actually acting upon the information that they are sharing. So it's definitely very alarming. And I feel that there are a lot of people who need to speak up, speak out, people who work in those spaces and who dwell in those spaces. It's not fair that we are literally the only group of women who are dealing with this. And we can't say that, there's something that we must have done to receive the treatment that we're getting, because there's nothing that any human being can do to deserve to be neglected, abused from people in positions of power. So there's a lot of really good information, as I stated before, here on the blackmamasmatter.org website. And, like I said, considering it's not something that is local to me, it's definitely hard to really connect. However, I do enjoy, looking for events and things like that in my locality, which it's really hard to find. However, it's definitely something that I try to stay connected to. It is definitely a part of my heart and what I am definitely drawn to, and how I have persevered through my own struggles as a Black woman, and wanting to be that bridge for my daughter, and to make sure that she's not going to be isolated within this system. So they definitely do have a lot of events that are coming up. There is an event coming up on April 17th in a couple of days, and this is a community event honoring Black mamas, centering Black birth workers. I think it's really important to know that, there are a lot of places where there aren't even any Black birthing workers that exist in these medical settings that, we can go to in order to receive the help that we want, such as Black doulas, Black midwives, having the opportunity to pick and choose who you want to bring your children into this world is definitely something that should be rectified and understood, just as much as someone who speaks a foreign language and wants to have someone who speaks their language to help them. I feel like it is only right to have someone who cares about us to take care of us. It's not fair that we have to be subjected to abusers in order to get through our birthing experiences. So it's definitely not fair to be paired with abusers and expected to not speak and say anything about the issues. So it's definitely nice to see, that there are a lot of, sacred gatherings within these spaces where they really honor the Black birthing experience and bringing back the, old ancestral traditions of birthing, because I feel like that is one avenue that has to rebirth itself into our society, is the ancestral birthing practices that our ancestors already knew before this Western medical system even arrived. I feel like, especially since I share a lot of herbal remedies and yoni steaming and things that you can do to help with your own healing, I feel like it is definitely an ancestral sacred safekeep that needs to be passed down from mother to child and, mother to daughter, to understand if we can't find a safe space in those spaces, we have to create our own, as we already did and as our ancestors did. And, that is the reason why we are still here and we made it, to the Americas and still survived, because we had our medicine women who kept us alive. So I think it's definitely an honoring ritual to honor your ancestors who came before you and understand this is why they survived the way that they did, and to really let go of this system, because the system has already let go of us. So I definitely will be sharing a lot of links here. There's a lot of information about how to change policies, cultivating the best research, and how to really educate yourself as a mom and to educate your daughters on what, to do in the event that, you go off on your own, you're a teenager, preteen, whatever the case may be, and you're going into these medical settings, making sure that you're educated, making sure that you know what you need and what you don't need, making sure that you have someone to accompany you, and making sure that, the care that you are receiving is quality care, and understanding the whole experience. So I will definitely be sharing a lot of links in this video. I definitely will be keeping up with this topic, considering it is something that is very near and dear to my heart. It is personal, and it is definitely not going to be silenced here on my channel. I'm definitely very much, as I stated before, on this channel, my channel is directly geared towards our people within the diaspora, trying to bridge that gap between one another as Africans, as diasporans in America, making sure that we stand with one another, because we are definitely, in a target zone where we are, being disparaged at a high rate, even within the continent of Africa, and the wars that are, splitting countries between one another. There's just so much going on, and I feel like there needs to be an upheaval of justice when it comes to what we are dealing with here in America, because we have these laws that are set, that are supposed to be enacted, but they are not being followed. And it is definitely something that is a topic of interest. So if you enjoyed this live video, please give it 2 thumbs up. Drop a comment below if you have any, topics within the diaspora to discuss, any organizations that are looking for volunteers, online volunteers. I'm definitely looking for organizations. As I stated, I cannot find in my locality, but I'm definitely looking for volunteer opportunities to work within our communities for our children and for our sisters, because that is a very underlooked topic of interest right now in the world. And it's definitely something that I am passionate about and that I am definitely in support of. I hope you all enjoyed this live, as I stated before. Thank you so much for watching.